The orbital salvage station drifted silently at the edge of human space, old and forgotten. Its metal skin was scarred by micrometeors and time. Inside, most lights were dead, and only a few corridors still had weak power. This place was meant to be empty. Evan Hale did not mind that. He moved slowly through the station's inner ring, boots echoing softly on the metal floor. He was a human salvage engineer, working alone as usual. The station belonged to no one now. The alien corporation that built it had abandoned it decades ago after a trade route collapse. To Evan, it was a chance to earn enough credits to keep flying for another year. He checked his scanner and frowned. Power fluctuations. That was new. Probably just another dying relay, he muttered to himself. He turned toward the airlock section to inspect it. As he walked, he felt the strange quiet that only deep space could give. No voices, no signals. Just the low hum of ancient machinery. Then the airlock alarm screamed. Evan froze. No ship had requested docking permission. No automated signal had come through. The alarms meant a forced entry or an emergency breach. He broke into a run. By the time he reached the main airlock, the inner door was already cycling open. Cold vapor spilled into the corridor. Evan raised his cutting tool. Not a weapon, but it was all he had. The door slid aside. Something collapsed forward. Evan barely caught the figure before it hit the floor. She was light, lighter than a human, and shaking badly. Her skin was a pale blue-gray, smooth and faintly glowing in thin lines along her neck and arms. Her clothing was torn, stained with dark alien blood. She was not human. Her eyes snapped open in panic. They were large, silver-black, and filled with fear. Please, she said in broken trade common. Do not send me back. Evan stared at her, heart pounding. Aliens were not rare in the galaxy, but they were rare here, especially fugitives crashing into dead stations. I'm not sending you anywhere, he said carefully. But you need to tell me what's going on. She tried to sit up and failed, gasping in pain. Her hands trembled as she grabbed his sleeve. They're coming, she whispered. Hunters. If they find me, I die. Evan glanced back at the airlock console. No incoming ship warnings yet, but that could change fast. Who are you? He asked. Her breathing was shallow. My name, Sealov. That was when her body stiffened. A sharp tone echoed through the corridor, coming from her. Evan jumped back. What was that? Her face twisted in terror. It activated. She clutched at her lower body, fingers digging into the strange fabric of her alien skirt.
It's hidden under my skirt, she said desperately. Please.
Take it off! Evan's brain stalled for half a second. Then training kicked in. He looked at her face. There was no embarrassment. No suggestion. Only pure fear. What is it? He asked. A control device, she said. A tracker. A failsafe. If they get close, it will kill me. The tone sounded again, louder this time. Evan's scanner beeped as well, suddenly flooded with signals. Oh, that's bad, he said. He knelt beside her. I'm going to help you, but I need you to stay still. She nodded quickly, tears forming at the edges of her eyes. I cannot remove it. My people designed it that way. Evan carefully lifted the outer layer of her clothing just enough to see what was attached beneath. His stomach tightened. The device was organic and mechanical at the same time. Smooth black metal curved into her body, wrapped around her thigh, with thin threads disappearing beneath her skin. Soft lights pulsed along its surface, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. That thing's fused to you, Evan murmured. Yes, she said. It obeys only non-Carthus biology. Evan frowned. Wait. You're saying it doesn't expect humans? Her eyes met his. Your species was rated as insignificant, too fragile, too reckless. Heaven gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, that sounds like us. The scanners screamed again. Incoming ships. Multiple. They're almost here, Saleth whispered. Heaven stood up fast. Okay, new plan. We hide, and I buy us time. He lifted her gently, surprised again by how light she was, and carried her deeper into the station. He sealed bulkhead doors behind them, rerouted power manually, and shut down every signal emitter he could find. They reached an old maintenance bay, dark and cramped. Evan laid her down on a workbench. Stay quiet, he said. I'm going to look at this thing. He pulled out his tools and studied the device closely. Alien tech was usually sealed, elegant, impossible to tamper with. This one was different. It assumed no one would try. Big mistake. Evan noticed small imperfections, stress points, emergency ports hidden under organic plating. He smiled, slightly. Whoever built you, he muttered to the device, never met a human mechanic. Scialeth watched him with disbelief. You should run. Humans do not survive hunter fleets. Evan did not look up. Neither do people who abandon others. A deep vibration passed through the station. Docking clamps engaged. They're here, Sayala said, voice shaking. Evan's hands moved faster. The device pulsed brighter, reacting to the ship's proximity. Evan felt heat under his fingers. Hey, he said quietly. Look at me. She did. You trusted me enough to ask for help, he said. I won't waste that. Her eyes softened, something like hope breaking through the fear. Footsteps echoed somewhere far away. Heavy, metallic, hunters. Evan finally exposed a thin access seam and jammed a tool inside. The device shrieked, a sound felt more than heard. Sylith cried out, but did not pull away. That hurt, Evan said through clenched teeth. But it means it's working! The lights on the device flickered. Outside the bay, alien voices echoed, cold and precise. Target detected. Human presence confirmed. Irrelevant. Evan smiled grimly. Yeah, he whispered. That's what they always think. The device's signal stuttered. For the first time since she arrived, Saleth breathed without shaking. And somewhere deep in alien space, threat assessment algorithms quietly began to fail. The maintenance bay was dark except for the weak glow of Evan's wrist light and the pulsing device attached to Saleth's body. The station shuddered again as something heavy locked onto its outer hull. The hunters had finished docking. Evan kept one hand steady on the tool lodged inside the device. The other wiped sweat from his forehead. The metal was hot now, far hotter than it should have been. Do not stop, Sylith whispered, teeth clenched. If it seals again, it will trigger the kill response. That's comforting, Evan muttered, but he did not pull back. Outside the bay, boots struck metal floors. Alien voices echoed through the corridors, calm and confident. They were not in a hurry. They believed time was on their side. Evan leaned closer to the device, studying the faint symbols scrolling across its surface. They were not letters, not exactly, more like shifting shapes that responded to touch and heat. The device was learning, adjusting, trying to protect itself. Smart thing, Evan said quietly. Too smart. Saleth turned her head to look at him.
It adapts to resistance. The longer you interfere, the more aggressive it becomes.
Evan snorted. Then we're on the clock. He switched tools, pulling out a thin wire probe from his kit. It was meant for bypassing old human circuits, not alien biotech, but he had little choice. He slid the probe along the exposed seam, carefully avoiding the threads that disappeared into her skin. Sealith gasped as the device reacted, lights flashing rapidly.
I know, Evan said quickly. I'm sorry. Tell me if it becomes unbearable. It already is, she replied, voice shaking.
But continue. That made him pause. He looked at her face, pale and tense, yet determined. You really don't want to go back, he said. No, she said. I would rather die free than live as their tool. Footsteps grew louder outside the bay. Evan's scanner vibrated softly. Multiple life signs. Heavy armor. Energy weapons. Okay, he whispered. New problem. He glanced around the bay. Old crates. Broken drones. A half-collapsed ceiling panel. Not much to work with. He pulled a small emitter from his belt and tossed it toward the far corner. It activated silently, projecting a faint heat signature and low-level power signal. Decoy, he murmured. Won't fool them long. The hunters' voices shifted direction almost immediately. See? Evan said.
Humans are great at lying with machines.
Despite the pain, Sealith gave a weak, confused sound that might have been a laugh. The device suddenly locked up, its surface going smooth and dark. Oh, no, you don't, Evan said. He pressed his palm flat against it. The shock hit instantly. His vision blurred as a sharp, burning sensation raced up his arm and into his head. Images that were not his flashed through his mind. Cold rooms, bright lights, voices speaking in a language he did not understand. Sealith screamed. Evan staggered but did not let go. Evan, she cried, it is linking to you. I noticed, he shouted back. The device was scanning him, probing his nervous system, trying to categorize him. Evan felt pressure behind his eyes, like someone squeezing his thoughts. Then something strange happened. The pressure hesitated. The device flickered again. Evan laughed through clenched teeth. What's wrong? Can't read me. Silas stared at him in shock. It should dominate you. Human minds are not designed for this. Yeah, Evan said. We're not designed for a lot of things.
We do them anyway. He forced the probe deeper.
The device shrieked, its signal spiking wildly. Evan's scanner beeped in protest as the tracking signal jumped, then split, then scattered. Outside, one of the hunters spoke sharply. Signal instability detected. Good, Evan whispered. The station shook as something exploded nearby, a door being forced open. They are close, Sealith said. I know, Evan replied. Just a bit longer. He finally found what he was looking for. A tiny node, barely visible, pulsing slower than the rest. A core connection point. He cut power to it. The device went still. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then, the lights on the device turned red. Sealith screamed. Evan swore loudly and yanked the probe out. That wasn't supposed to happen. It has entered purge mode, Sealith cried. It will attempt to kill me to prevent capture. Evan's mind raced. Okay. Think. The hunter's footsteps were right outside now. Shadows passed under the door. Human, one of them called calmly. Release the fugitive. You are not a factor in this operation. Evan ignored them. He grabbed a coolant canister from a nearby crate and slammed it against the device. Frost spread rapidly over the black metal. The pulsing slowed. Sealith gasped for air. That buys us seconds, Evan said. Maybe. The hunters began cutting through the door. Evan made a decision. He pulled off his glove and placed his bare hand against the device again. Sealith's eyes widened. No. The feedback, I know, he said. Trust me. The shock this time was worse. Pain lanced through his skull. He fell to one knee, but stayed connected. The device tried again to read him, to control him, to categorize his thoughts. It failed. Human thoughts were messy, emotional, contradictory. Fear and stubbornness mixed together in ways the device could not predict. Evan pushed back, not with force, but with chaos. The device's lights flickered erratically. Its signal collapsed inward, confused. Sayalith felt it loosen. "It's weakening," she whispered. The door burst open. 3 hunters entered the bay, tall, armored, their faces hidden behind smooth masks. Their weapons hummed softly, aimed directly at Evan. "Step away," the lead hunter ordered. "Now." Evan did not move. Instead, he twisted the probe sharply and ripped the outer shell of the device open. Sparks flew. The red lights went dark. The device went dead. Sayalith collapsed back onto the bench, breathing hard but alive. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, the hunters reacted. Weapons. Charged. Evan turned slowly to face them. Hands raised, body shaking from pain and exhaustion. "You're too late," he said simply. The lead hunter tilted its head slightly. "Impossible." Sayalith sat up, eyes burning with something new. "It is removed." "That cannot be," the hunter replied. "Human interference is insufficient." Evan smiled weakly. "You'd be surprised." The station's power surged suddenly. Old systems came online as Evan's earlier rerouting kicked in. Alarms howled throughout the station. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, separating the bay from the rest of the corridor. The hunters fired, but the doors sealed just in time. Evan collapsed to the floor, laughing breathlessly. Sayalith slid off the bench and knelt beside him, supporting his weight. "You are injured," she said. "Worth it," he replied. "Still breathing?" "Yes," she said softly. "Because of you." The station shook again, but this time it felt different. Unstable. Dangerous. Evan forced himself to sit up. "Okay, good news. Device is off. Bad news? We really made them angry." Sayalith looked at the broken remains of the device, then at him. "You should have let me die." Evan shook his head. Not how humans work. Far away, the hunters regrouped, their confidence shaken. For the first time, they adjusted their threat models. Human interference was no longer irrelevant, and this hunt was no longer simple. The station groaned like a wounded animal. Metal creaked deep inside its frame, and the lights flickered again, weaker this time. Evan lay on the floor of the maintenance bay, breathing hard. His head still rang from the feedback, and his right hand trembled uncontrollably. Sayalith stayed beside him, one arm around his shoulders, helping him sit upright. "You should not have survived that," she said quietly. Evan forced a crooked smile. "Story of my life." Behind the sealed bulkhead, the hunters were already moving again. Heavy steps, controlled voices. They were not panicking. They were adapting. Sayalith listened carefully. "They will not retreat. They will change tactics." Evan pushed himself up against the wall. "Then we do the same." He looked at the broken remains of the device on the floor. It was dark now, lifeless, but thin organic threads still twitched weakly where they had been connected to her body.
"Is it really dead?" he asked. "Yes," she replied.
"But its absence will alert them. To them, I should already be dead."
Evan exhaled slowly. "Great. So now we're officially a mystery."
She studied his face. "You are in pain." "I'll live," he said. "Question is, will we?" The station shuddered again. Harder this time. Somewhere above them, a section collapsed with a deep, metallic crash. That sounded bad. Evan muttered. Saleth's eyes widened. They are destabilizing the station. Evan cursed under his breath. Of course they are.
Can't catch us? Break the toy.
He struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on a crate. His movements were slower now. Clumsy. Sayala rose as well, though she still moved carefully. Without the device, she seemed freer, but also weaker, like something essential had been torn away.
Can you walk? Evan asked.
Yes, she said.
But not fast. Evan nodded. Then we don't fight them.
Whoa! He pulled up a crude map of the station on his wrist display. Most of it was red. Dead systems, collapsed corridors. No power. Only a few sections still showed green. There, he said, pointing. Old cargo spine. Leads to an external maintenance dock. A ship? Salith asked. Evan shook his head. No, but there's something better. They moved quietly through side corridors, avoiding main paths. Evan sealed doors behind them when he could, rerouting power again and again. The station responded slowly, like an old creature waking from sleep. Behind them, the hunters cut through obstacles with precision. They did not rush, but they did not stop. At one junction, the floor suddenly dropped away, collapsing into darkness. Evan barely grabbed Sayala's arm in time. They both froze, hearts pounding. Below them, the station's inner void yawned open. Careful, Evan whispered. This place is coming apart. They took a longer route, climbing through narrow maintenance shafts. Evan's breath came harder now, sweat soaking his shirt. Sayalith watched him closely. You are weakening. Yeah, he said. Still got a few bad decisions left in me, though. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. Suddenly, the station lights flared bright white, then red. An automated voice echoed faintly through the corridors, distorted by age. Structural integrity compromised. Core instability detected. Evan stopped. That's new. Sayalith's eyes widened. The core will breach? How long? Evan asked. She listened, calculating. Minutes. Evan laughed once, short and sharp. They're really committed. He pulled her forward again. Come on! They reached the cargo spine just as the hunters entered the corridor behind them. Energy bolts scorched the walls, missing by inches. Evan slammed a control panel and sealed the bulkhead. The door shuddered as weapons struck it. That won't hold, he said. It does not need to, Sayalith replied. Only long enough. They ran down the spine, past massive empty cargo clamps and rusted rails. At the far end, a large circular hatch waited, half buried under debris. Evan slapped the manual override. Nothing happened.
Please, he muttered. He hit it again.
The hatch groaned and slowly began to open. Behind them, the hunters cut through the bulkhead. We are out of time, Salith said. The hatch opened enough for them to slip through. Beyond it was the maintenance dock, a wide open space with no gravity and a torn view of the stars. Pieces of the station drifted slowly outside, glowing faintly. Evan clipped a tether to Salith and then to himself. Stay close, he said. No sudden moves. She nodded. The hunters emerged seconds later, stepping calmly into the dock, magnetic boots locking onto the floor. Their leader raised a weapon. This station will not survive.
Release the fugitive. You may yet be spared.
Evan looked at Sayalith. She shook her head. They will kill us both. Evan turned back to the hunters. Yeah, that's what I figured. He slapped another control. Explosive bolts fired along the dock's outer rim. The entire section tore free from the station. For a terrifying moment, everything spun. Then, silence. The dock drifted away, carrying Evan and Sayalith with it, while the hunters were left behind on the collapsing station. Sayalith clung to him, Eyes wide as stars filled her vision. "You planned this?" she asked.
No, Evan said honestly, but I hoped it would work.
Behind them, the station's core finally breached. Light exploded outward, silent and blinding. Debris scattered in all directions. The hunters' ships pulled away too late. When the brightness faded, the station was gone. Only drifting wreckage remained. Evan floated, tethered to the dock fragment, chest heaving. "We're alive," he said softly. Saleth looked at him, stunned. "You destroyed an entire station to save one life." Evan shrugged weakly. "Old station. Needed demolition anyway." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed her head. "My people believed humans were reckless," she said. "Now I see the truth." "Oh?" Evan asked.
You are dangerous, she said, because you care.
Before he could reply, his scanner beeped weakly, a signal. Human-made. Evan blinked. No way. A small salvage tug drifted into view, responding to the explosion's emergency beacon. Evan laughed, relief finally breaking through. "Well," he said. "Looks like we're not alone anymore." Scialith watched the human ship approach, her expression thoughtful. Somewhere far away, alien systems registered the loss of a hunter team and a fugitive who should have been dead. And somewhere deeper still, quiet alarms began to spread. Humans were no longer a variable to ignore. They were a complication. The salvage tug moved carefully through the drifting wreckage, its small engines firing in short bursts. It was an old human ship, patched and repainted many times, but it moved with purpose. Evan and Saleth floated near the broken maintenance dock, still tethered together. A human voice crackled through Evan's wrist communicator. Unidentified life signs detected. "This is the tug Wayfarer. State your status." Evan let out a long breath he did not realize he was holding. "This is Evan Hale, human. Salvage engineer. I'm alive, and I've got a guest." There was a pause.
"A guest?" the voice repeated.
"Long story," Evan said. "We're kind of exposed out here." Another pause, then, "Copy that. Moving in for recovery." Magnetic grapples locked onto the dock fragment. Slowly, gently, Evan and Saleth were pulled toward the tug's open bay. Artificial gravity returned in a soft, dizzying wave as they crossed the threshold. Evan collapsed to his knees the moment gravity took hold. Saleth stumbled but remained standing, looking around in wonder. The inside of the tug was cramped, loud, and very human. Exposed wires. Scratched walls. Tools. Everywhere. 3 humans stared at her. One was the pilot, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes. Another was a young mechanic holding a wrench. The third was a medic, already moving toward Evan. The pilot broke the silence. "Hale." "You didn't say your guest was alien?" Evan looked up weakly. "Yeah, sorry. Slipped my mind." The mechanic swore under his breath. Saleth raised her hand slowly. "A universal sign of peace." "I will not harm you," she said carefully. The pilot studied her for a moment, then nodded once. "Good, because we don't get paid enough for first contact wars." The medic knelt beside Evan. "You're a mess," he said. "What happened to your hand?" Evan glanced at it. The skin was burned and trembling. "Bad handshake," he replied. As the medic worked, Saleth watched closely. She noticed how gently he handled Evan, how focused he was, how no one questioned whether Evan was worth saving. "This is normal?" she asked quietly. "You risk your ship for one human?" The pilot overheard and shrugged. "That human is family." That, Saleth. Absorb that in silence. The tug pulled away from the debris field and jumped to a nearby safe zone. Inside, Evan was laid on a narrow bunk while the medic treated him properly. Painkillers dulled the worst of the feedback, but his head still felt heavy. Sealith sat nearby, refusing to leave.
You should rest, she told him.
I will, he said, eventually. The pilot entered the small medical bay.
All right, Hale. You owe us an explanation. Preferably before military scans pick up that explosion. Evan nodded slowly. Fair. He told them everything. The fugitive. The device. The hunters. The station. No one interrupted. When he finished, the pilot leaned back against the wall. You realize you just made enemies with an interstellar power, right?
Evan smiled faintly.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
The mechanic crossed his arms. Why help her?
Heaven looked at Sealith, because she asked. Sealith met his gaze, something tight in her chest she did not have words for. The pilot sighed.
All right. Here's the problem.
If what you say is true, then she's carrying something more dangerous than that device. Sealith straightened. I carry knowledge. The pilot nodded. Exactly. Sealith took a slow breath. I was part of the Karthus inner record. I saw what was never meant to be seen. Wars hidden, species erased, lies layered upon lies. The room went very still.
The device was meant to ensure I never spoke, she continued. Alive or dead.
The pilot looked grim.
Then keeping you alive just became very expensive.
Evan shifted. Worth it. The pilot looked at him.
You always say that! Before anyone could respond, alarm sounded on the bridge. Multiple contacts! The mechanic shouted. Not Karthus design, but military grade, the pilot swore. Human patrol? The mechanic shook his head.
No! Private fleet!
Unknown registration. Sealith's eyes widened. They followed the signal remnants. Evan sat up too fast and winced. So much for subtle. The tug's main screen showed 3 sleek ships emerging from warp. Not Karthus hunters, but something worse. Mercenaries. The kind that did not ask questions. A voice cut through the comms. Unregistered tug. Power down and prepare for boarding. The pilot slammed a fist against the console. We're not outrunning them, Sealith stepped forward. They are here for me. Evan grabbed her wrist. Not happening. She looked at him. If they capture me, many more will die. If I surrender, only I will. Evan shook his head. You think they'll let the rest of us walk away? She hesitated. They won't, Evan said. This isn't your burden alone. The pilot made a decision. All right. We jump. The mechanic stared. With what fuel? And to where? The pilot smiled thinly. Somewhere stupid. The tug's engines screamed as they overloaded. The mercenary ships fired, energy beams grazing the hull. Hold on! The pilot shouted. Space twisted. They emerged in a dead zone between systems, far from normal routes. The engines died immediately, smoke filling the bridge. Silence followed. For a moment, it felt like they had escaped. Then Sealith stiffened. They are still tracking, she whispered. Not by technology. Then how? She placed a hand on her chest. By me. Everyone stared. They marked my biology long ago, she said. I am a signal. Evan's heart sank. So, no matter where we go, the pilot said slowly, they can follow. Sealith nodded. Unless... She looked at Evan. Unless what? He asked. She swallowed. Unless I sever the link completely. Evan shook his head. No more devices. Not a device, she said.
A neural bridge. It requires a second mind.
The room went quiet. A human mind, she added. The pilot stared at Evan. Absolutely not. Evan already knew. What happens if we don't? He asked Saelith. They will never stop, she replied. Not for me. Not for you. Not for your people. Evan closed his eyes. When? He asked. Soon, she said. Before they arrive. The pilot grabbed Evan's shoulder. Hale, listen to me. This is not your job.
Evan looked at her.
It is now. Sayalf stepped closer, her voice low.
This will hurt you. It may change you. Evan smiled weakly.
I'm already changed. They moved to the medical bay. The medic prepared what little equipment he could. No one spoke much. As Evan lay back, Saelith took his hand. If you survive this, she said, the galaxy will hear the truth.
And if I don't, he asked, then I will make sure they remember your name. The ship trembled as distant drives flared.
The mercenaries had found them. Evan squeezed her hand. Let's give them something to remember. Saelith closed her eyes and began.
And deep in the dark between stars, two minds reached toward each other, human chaos and alien precision, about to do something the galaxy had never prepared for.
Evan's mind felt strange, stretched in ways he had never known. It was as if every thought he had ever had was suddenly connected to another, alien consciousness. Saelith's presence in his mind was vivid, but controlled, precise, like a star guiding him through a storm. Pain lanced through his skull, sharp and deep, yet there was clarity in the agony. His human instincts screamed to pull away, but he did not. Somehow, he knew that pulling away now would mean more than pain. It could mean death. Saelith whispered inside his mind, calm and urgent. Focus. Feel the threads, the signal, the network connecting them all. Evan breathed in slowly, trying to steady his racing thoughts. The neural bridge was not just a connection. It was a tool, a weapon, a key. Through it, he could sense the hunters approaching, their exact positions, their movements, even their intentions. Every human tactic he had learned over the years, instincts, improvisation, risk-taking, was amplified by Saelith's alien precision. Together, they were a storm no one had predicted. The tug's sensors screamed warnings. 3 ships were in pursuit, closing fast, their weapon systems charged, energy arcs lighting up space between them and the tug. The crew on the Wayfarer moved with practiced precision. But even they looked worried. Evan could feel the fear and focus in their minds, and it bolstered his resolve. Humans might be underestimated, but they never stopped adapting. Prepare countermeasures, Evan said aloud, his voice strained. Deploy everything. Flares, decoys, overload the engines if you have to. The pilot, gripping the main controls, nodded sharply. Understood. Do it! The tug lurched as flares shot out in all directions. Energy arcs from the mercenary ships converged on them, and Evan felt the bridge flinch under the strain. But the Neuralink allowed him to anticipate each shot, each evasive move. He guided the pilot's hands subtly, whispered instructions, adjusting their angle and trajectory faster than anyone could react. Saelith's mental voice was steady. They think they understand. They do not understand human unpredictability. Evan gritted his teeth. Neither do they understand human stubbornness. A beam hit the tug's hull directly, shaking it violently. Sparks flew, alarms screamed. The mechanics and medics braced themselves. Evan felt every tremor, every vibration, as if his body had become an extension of the ship itself. His mind and hers worked in harmony, calculating, adapting, predicting. Divert power to shields, then engines! Evan shouted. The pilot executed it flawlessly, not questioning, trusting the human instincts amplified through Saelis' guidance. The tug spun hard, slipping out of the main vector of fire. The mercenary ships flared in frustration, their energy beams missing completely. Saelis' thoughts flowed into his.
You are performing beyond expectation? I have never seen humans move so decisively.
Evan allowed himself a fleeting smirk. You've never seen the human heart in action. The tug raced through the debris field left by the destroyed station. Pieces of metal and shattered machinery drifted in silence, but Evan and Saelith could feel the hunters adjusting their vectors to compensate.
They are learning, she warned. They are adjusting.
Faster than expected. Evan's mind surged.
Then we need to be faster. He guided the pilot into a tight spiral among the debris, weaving unpredictably.
The mercenary ships followed blindly, crashing into debris, their hulls screaming under the strain. One exploded violently, a ball of fire and sparks drifting silently into the void. The tug crew cheered briefly, but there was no time to celebrate. 2 ships remained. Evan could feel their intent, to kill, to capture, to retrieve Salith at any cost. He glanced at her.
I need to do more.
Saelith nodded.
I am ready.
Together, they projected their combined mental focus outward. It was no longer just defense, it was offense. They could reach the ship's targeting systems through long-range signals, subtle manipulations that only their linked minds could achieve. Weapons misfired, engines overloaded. Systems malfunctioned. Human ingenuity, guided by alien precision, had turned into a weapon that no algorithm had anticipated. The remaining mercenary ship tried a desperate ramming maneuver. Evan directed the tug away at the last moment. The ship's hull scraped against debris, tearing open, sparking, and finally spinning out of control. It drifted silently into space, useless. The last ship attempted to flee. Evan sensed its weak jump engine, its choice of trajectory. He guided the pilot to intercept, placing the tug directly in its path. The ship had no options left. Evan and Saelith watched as it made a final hopeless maneuver before self-destructing to avoid capture. Silence returned to the void. The tug floated among the drifting wreckage, battered but intact. Evan slumped back against the wall, exhausted beyond description. Saelith released the mental link slowly, allowing their minds to separate. The pain faded, leaving a sharp clarity and an overwhelming respect between them. You survived, she said, voice trembling. You controlled the device. You saved all of us.
Evan laughed weakly. No, we survived.
Together, the pilot approached, shaking her head in disbelief. I have to admit, Hale, I've never seen anything like that. You just outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outlasted an entire fleet.
Evan waved a hand. Humans are stubborn and apparently unpredictable.
Saelith smiled faintly. Your species is dangerous in ways the galaxy cannot calculate, not because of strength, but because of heart, creativity, and choice. Evan looked at her, noticing for the first time the exhaustion in her silver-black eyes. He reached out, offering support. Looks like you won't have to run anymore. She shook her head slowly. Not yet.
But I have the knowledge now. I can warn others.
And you have changed the rules for everyone who underestimated humans. The tug crew began repairs, checking systems, reinforcing shields. They were still a long way from safe space. But Evan felt a deep satisfaction. They had survived impossible odds, not because they were stronger than the mercenaries, but because they had thought, acted, and risked more than any machine, alien, or calculation had predicted. Saelith approached the cockpit, looking out at the stars.
The galaxy will hear of this, she said. They will reconsider humans.
Evan followed, sitting beside her.
They'd better.
Because we're not done yet. She turned to him, a hint of respect and wonder in her gaze. I thought I was alone, hunted, and powerless. You showed me otherwise. Evan shrugged, a small smile on his face. Humans never stop trying. We survive because we care, and we fight because it matters. Sayilith nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. For the first time since she became a fugitive, she felt a glimmer of hope. She was no longer alone. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and capable of things her people could not imagine. The stars stretched out before them, endless and quiet, as the tug's engines hummed steadily. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had just witnessed the moment when humans proved that heart and ingenuity could triumph over technology, fleets, and fear. And somewhere deep in alien space, the word went out. Humans were no longer irrelevant. They were unpredictable, and that unpredictability made them a force no one could ignore. Evan leaned back, exhausted but alive. Sayalith beside him, safe for now. The stars outside the viewport seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging what had just happened. The galaxy would remember this day. Not for weapons, ships, or fleets, but for the choices made, the courage shown, and the human heart that refused to give up. Together, human and alien, they had rewritten the rules. And that was only the beginning.